Oh, we mulched. And we mulched hard this weekend. I just want a random fact like that to be at the open of this episode. Hey everyone, I'm Patrick Jones. Welcome to episode 36 of That Gives Me Anxiety. Yeah, I rented a van or a pickup truck from... I reacted to this site. It was just like the location of the U-Haul, but I reacted to this site like people walking by the house from the Munsters. It was just like, what? There's people in there? It's just like a terrifying gun store place. Oh, man. Just wild. I couldn't believe that was the pickup spot. Thought Leatherface was going to get me. But no, Jamie and I went to a mulch yard, mulched up the new house. It's looking good, right? It's like putting a new dress on the house, I guess. I don't know. I'm really searching for a metaphor. Yeah, the house is... Odd metaphor aside, the house is really coming together, and thank goodness it'll give us some time to get back to living our lives instead of knowing everyone at Home Depot and Lowe's on a first-name basis. I mean, they're nice. But I wish I, would go to the beach a little bit more often. Well, we've got a great episode lined up for you. As if I'm not just staring at a microphone by myself right now. I've got my two good friends on to talk about the anxiety related to starting a business. Matt Revere, who was my roommate for a couple of years in Sunnyside, Queens, is a small business expert. And he talks about some of the programs and different things that are available to small business owners or prospective small business owners. And Sarah Morgan Ashey, who owns a small business called King's Kolache, based in Bushwick in Brooklyn, New York, talks about her experience with starting a business, which opened its brick and mortar in March of 2020. Which feels like if Alanis Morissette revamped the Ironic song. Like, it sounds like a scenario that could fit into that. But thankfully, her business is still going strong. So before we get to the interviews, I just want to remind you, if you're liking the show, to please remember to rate and review it on whatever platform you're listening on. You can check the show out on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. Saying these things like it's the fine print of a pharmaceutical ad. And if you're liking the show and you want to support it, you can support me. There's the Buy Me a Coffee link in the description. It's just a way to make a donation, and any donations are always appreciated. So yeah, let's start talking about small businesses and ways people can be helped in that effort. As always, thank you so much for listening, and enjoy. Joining me now on the podcast is my good friend, Sarah Morgan Ashey. Sarah, thank you so much for coming on.
Oh, thanks for having me. This is so much fun.
Yeah. We know each other from improv. I forget that. What's the name of the team? We're on Spies to Men, but we knew each other before. Yeah.
Yeah. That was a fun team.
It was a very fun team. Yeah. Just coming out to Boys to Men. I mean, that's a lot of fun.
Yeah. I can't remember exactly where I know we met at the Comedy Theater at the Pit, but it was definitely before that team, but I can't place it.
Yeah. Well, both you and I were, fair to say, kind of diehards, really all about improv for a while there. So it was just like an inevitable friendship.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you were ahead of me in the levels of, and I always watched you and was like, oh man, I want to be like Sarah because you're so funny and talented. And yeah. And so
Patrick,
I wanted to be like you.
The feeling is very mutual. It is.
Oh. Come on, please. Well, we have you on here today to talk about starting a business, and there's a lot of anxiety around starting a business and keeping a business. So why don't we start by you telling everyone a little bit about your business and how the idea came about?
Oh, sure. So my business is King's Kolache. It's a bakery specializing in kolaches, which are, if you're not familiar with them, they are a Czech dessert pastry, Eastern European dessert pastry that became popularized in Texas and parts of the Midwest. In America, they're usually savory. Think a pig in a blanket, but bigger. The European style, the Eastern European style looks similar, not completely different from a Danish, a semi-sweet dough with sweet or savory fillings. And so that's what we specialize in. But at the bakery, we make a lot of other things like Texas-esque road stop foods is what I would describe it as. So we make and Southern favorites, Southern staples, I would say. It's not completely unique to Texas. So we make Frito pies, we make breakfast tacos. That's
Nice.
kind of our gateway. We kind of view the breakfast tacos as the gateway drug to kolaches. Oh, I know breakfast. I know a taco. Yeah, I know this, but a lot of people in New York aren't as familiar with kolaches. So we have a brick and mortar location up in Bushwick, which is northern Brooklyn, and we're really proud of it. We opened our brick and mortar March of 2020.
What a perfect time to be starting a brand new business.
Yeah, perfect timing. But I will say, we had been a company since 2014, like pop-ups and food festivals, and then kind of evolved to the brick and mortar. And I guess where the idea came from, my husband was born in Houston. So I grew up in Tennessee. I'm a Tennessee gal. I've been calling myself the Davy Crockett of this operation. But so Paul grew up, or he was born in Texas, and then his family moved around a little bit and then moved back to Texas. And so they were really familiar with kolaches. I traveled to Texas a fair amount. My aunt's been in Dallas for as long as I can remember. My brother lived in Austin for a long time and then married a gal from San Antonio. So I've definitely had Texas in my orbit for forever. But I didn't know about kolaches until Paul and I started dating. And then we would go to his parents' place down in Texas, and his family's very athletic, and they would go work out and go on runs and stuff. And we'd be like, yeah, we're going to meet you. We'll meet you at the gym. And then we just go get a bunch of kolaches because we couldn't find them in New York. And so the idea kind of spawned out of necessity, really. We were living in Brooklyn, and we're like, we really want to eat this pastry, but we can't find that authentic style that we have in Texas. And so we just started baking them at home for ourselves and our friends. And then that kind of, I guess, evolved to, we're like, hey, what if we did a food festival? And then in order to do that, you need to bake out of a commercial kitchen. So this is such a long answer, but
no, it's good.
But I was going to say the long and the short of it, but the long and the long of it is, Paul at the time was bartending at this wonderful restaurant and bar called Backyard in Park Slope, Brooklyn. And we would come in during their off hours, because I think they opened around 4 in the afternoon. So we'd come for closed, and then we would bake. And we got to use their kitchen for free which was great, commercial kitchen, because then we would provide the pastries to the restaurant for free. So that was kind of like our rent to them. And we were able to cook there for our food festivals. So it all kind of worked, because renting a commercial kitchen, there's a lot of places you can rent commercial kitchens in New York and other cities. It's very expensive here. So that's kind of how we were creative in solving that solution. Because when you're starting out, we had literally $20 when we started our business.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
So then, we did food festivals, and then that sort of evolved to, we started doing pop-ups in breweries and bars. Probably the most influential one was this brewery up in Bushwick called KCBC. And we were their very first pop-up, and we were weekly for like 2 years. And we kind of fell in love with Bushwick, northern Brooklyn. And through a very strange coincidence, divine intervention, whatever you want to call it, that's where our shop is now. And so we had sworn off having a brick and mortar, because having a restaurant in New York's a little crazy. Or anyway, but we kind of felt like we needed to have a brick and mortar for various reasons. And and it worked out that was a location. So that's, I would say that's it in a nutshell, but that's it in a novel.
Well, I have to say for people, I mean, specifically King's Kolache's food is very, very good. Yeah, you've definitely made multiple times and brought them to the pit, and I enjoyed every single one you've made for me.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah. And it's also, it's the story is great, because you're right. Like, how many different cultures move to New York and then kind of get homesick that they can't get a certain thing, right? So it makes sense to fill that niche.
Exactly. Yeah. And you brought up a really good point. Beyond them being so popular in Texas, kolaches have a lot of similarities with, well, it's stuffed bread. So every culture has some sort of version
Right.
of stuffed bread. So it's a nostalgic kind of food too. I mean, I would love to say that we created this pastry, but it actually has a pretty big cult following. And it's been interesting to me to learn about similar pastries that are popular all over the world. So that's been kind of a unexpected joy of starting this business, you know.
Absolutely. For the listeners, I also interviewed Matt Revere, who Sarah knows, and he's a small business expert, and so we have 3 clips with him to also help weigh in on starting a business and steps that you can take to help yourself. And so I think it's time to go to the first clip.
Cool.
So let me get this straight. In today's day and age, you're supposed to be drinking a ton of water, doing yoga, making sure you and your whole family is happy, strike a good work-life balance, exercise, read books, watch movies, eat healthy meals, be a big part of your community, and get 8 hours of sleep. It's unrealistic. It's too much. Well, that's why there's Instacart to take a little bit off your plate, or help put a little bit on your plate. Oh, I'm so sorry. Using Instacart, you search for all your favorite foods and items that you need from the grocery store, fresh produce, all your favorites, everything you want, and they deliver it to you. They go to the store and do your shopping for you. Just remove it from your to-do list, just with a few clicks. And you'll have your items delivered to your door in as fast as an hour. It's pretty quick. And through the link in the episode description, they're offering free delivery on your first order over $35. But you got to make sure you click the link in the description. That tells Instacart that this show sent you and it helps support the show. And you can also take advantage of the free delivery. So yeah, be nice to yourself. Give Instacart a shot. Joining me now on the podcast is Matt Revere, who's a small business expert, was also my roommate for 2 years in Sunnyside, Queens. And we met each other on a now defunct improv group, Bueller. Matt, thank you so much for coming on here.
Thanks, Pat. I appreciate all the back history in our relationship so people can really understand this.
Any perceived animosity is real.
Exactly.
Oh, man. Well, you are a small business expert. You've been working in that for 10 years. Why don't you tell everyone a little bit about your experience?
Yeah, so a lot of my experience comes from helping small businesses on the ground, specifically in the New York City area. And what we do is our company, we run a lot of free small business solution centers where small businesses in the New York City area can go and get technical assistance for their business, whether they need help with capital, business planning, marketing, whatever that may be. We're here and we're there to help. So that's what I've been primarily doing with small businesses, and our centers see over 1,000 small businesses per year. So we're very, very active.
Oh, wow. That's a lot of companies.
Yeah. And they always run the gambit, everyone from food and beverage to traditional things such as law firms. And there's always some interesting ones in there. That's always for sure.
Well, I definitely want to touch on that, but kind of jumping in there, what is the most important thing that someone who has a business idea, what's the most important thing that they need to know?
Yeah, I think the most important thing they need to know is to really understand what they're getting into when they're starting to explore entrepreneurship. It's always best to consult someone or to find some free resources for you to do before you jump in that pool, because that pool is a very, very deep pool with different triggers in there. And so what you want to do is you want to make sure you take some lessons beforehand and do that upfront planning. When we're thinking about starting a small business, it's probably one of the most anxiety-inducing things you can do. You strip away all your securities. There's no guaranteed paycheck, no health insurance, no retirement and vacation. And you're most likely going to invest your own capital into this business along with time. And so, well, as a small business owner, that anxiety will never go away because there's this entity that exists on its own. And you always see market fluctuations in market forces such as COVID or the supply chain or the labor shortage that will always be hurting your small business. And so what you can do to alleviate that anxiety is that upfront planning, is that strategic planning for your business, where you're sitting down and you're writing out the roadmap for your business. It's incredibly important at the beginning stages for sure to know what that roadmap looks like. But even as your business evolves, because we all know the ecosystem is always changing.
Mm-hmm. Well, is that something that is something that you guys help with, like writing a business plan, right? Because I mean,
Yeah.
I wouldn't know how to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the things I think people should realize or recognize. It doesn't matter where you are in this nation, whether you're in New York City or in a more rural area. There's free business technical assistance out there for your business to help with these things. One major one that's across the nation is called the SBDC centers. They are located throughout the country, usually close ties to universities, and those are free services by the SBA. And once you get plugged into those ecosystems, there's always people there to help your business in any way possible.
That's really encouraging. But who's paying for these resources? Is it taxes? Yeah.
Yep, taxes. And so what you're also seeing right now, because of post-COVID world, is a lot of the ARPA funding going to help small businesses. So if you're looking to start a small business, or if you have a small business, there's actually a lot of funding resources out there. This is an opportunity for a lot of businesses that didn't exist prior to COVID.
Mm-hmm.
Because of that, I always say check and see what's available in your neighborhood. There's a lot of grant opportunities right now, post-COVID relief.
That's very encouraging. Well, I'm curious, you've worked with a lot of different small businesses. Is there some way of determining success? Is it related? How do you, when you're looking at a business, can you tell what you think would be successful? And what do you look at for metrics of success?
I've helped businesses throughout all different industries. And the number one thing that people think, it's not magic. The number one thing that will make your business go far and be successful is hard work. It's a lot of hard work, especially at the beginning, because not only are you the person selling the product, you have to be the bookkeeper, you have to be the marketing agency, you have to wear all of these different hats. And it's very, very time consuming at the beginning. And so when we think about anxiety and ways to mitigate that, you really want to make sure you have those plans in place, to make sure you're not scrambling. If you're scrambling a lot, then that can definitely tend to lead to a lot of emotions and disorganization and can really, really kind of hinder your business. So you want to make sure that all of that organization is kind of taken into account. There's always work in your business where you're selling the gadget, you're selling the products and services. Then there's always working on your business where it's kind of taking care of the fundamentals of your business, understanding the bookkeeping and understanding the structure and everything that goes into that. So when you start a small business, you're actually already kind of running two businesses.
Oh, there you go. That's you have even more work than you expected.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I'm curious about putting together a business plan. Is that something that you guys knew how to do with your business, or did you get help with that?
That's a great question. We did get help, although not at first. And when I say we got help, we primarily just showed it to a lot of people.
Okay, yeah, like a screenplay.
Yeah, we didn't like formally hire someone to write a business plan. Paul and I are kind of like boots in the mud kind of folks. So at any point, you're going to be a beginner. You're going to be a newbie at something. And starting this business, I don't want to speak for Paul. I don't want to speak for my husband, but this was the first like real, I had done like little businesses here and there, in college, make a few extra bucks, but this was the first like real business I was dipping my body into. And so
not just toes. Yes.
Yeah. And so I didn't know how to write a business plan, but we just did a bunch of research online, came up with a first draft. then a second draft, a third draft, and we really honed in on what it is that we want to do, why we're doing it, our expectation for the future. We really got into the nitty gritty, and then we kept revising it. And I should say we're still revising it. And I think that's an important thing to kind of keep in mind, that yes, you want to have a clear understanding of who you are as a company, who you are as business, where you want to go. And then within that, there will likely be some evolution. There should be, as your business grows. And so things should be kind of fluid, with the exception of like your core heartbeat of why you're doing this. And you might achieve some goals faster than you expected. Some might be a little bit harder as you learn more about what steps are needed to take that goal. Because sometimes you're only going to know by doing it.
Yeah.
So that's kind of our experience with the business plan. It's still, I would say, a fluid document, but I think the more people that can get eyes on it, I think sometimes with ideas, and I don't know if you experienced this, Patrick, and maybe this is just something too that we've experienced through comedy, but sometimes I feel like people get really precious with their ideas, and maybe they're scared to share them because, oh, what if somebody takes them? Or they're scared to share them because, oh, if I say this out loud, it's going to look stupid. Am I doing this right? It's not perfect, but I kind of say, poppycock, like that's hogwash. You should share, because
of all the things I was expecting you to say, poppycock was not one of them. But yes,
I wasn't expecting to say that either. but the point is, ideas are meant to be shared, and the only way I believe to really move forward is to be generous with them and brave with them and share them, whether that's in your business plan or that initial spark that you have of like, hey, it would be kind of cool if I started this, that kind of thing.
Yeah. I also think that people not only precious with ideas, but also feel like an idea has to be perfect on the outset. And I think improv has helped me with that it's like you said, it's boots in the mud, just jump in. It's not going to be perfect, and you hone it as you move forward.
Oh yeah, big time, Patrick. I think that's one of the biggest things that I've learned, and that I'm continuing to learn, is perfection is not going to get the job done. Yes, you want to strive for excellence. You want to strive to be great. You want to strive to do your best. But the moment you hold back because it's not perfect is the moment that's fear. That's fear talking. And one big piece of advice that Paul and I've received is you never want to make a decision because or based on fear. Because not only is that going to prevent you from actually going forward and doing the thing, but it's going to prevent you from maybe finding some other creative solution that somebody else maybe hasn't thought of. And, the only way to move forward is to take some risks, to be a little brave and to go for it, and not to overthink or overplan. You do your research, but go for it. I think perfectionism holds us back. You got to get in there, get your hands on
do it. Yeah.
Try it.
Yeah. Well, you raise a very important question that, this is, as you mentioned, jumping in with your whole body. It's not dipping in your toe. So there's a lot of fear and anxiety related to getting a business off the ground. How did you and Paul manage those fears as they came up? I mean, you're incredibly positive, but that doesn't mean that you didn't have your fair share of fear and doubt.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a really great question, because I think it comes down to your heart a little bit. If you're doing something just to make money, or you're doing something just because it seems fun, you are setting yourself up for failure. You absolutely are. I think that knowing the core, the heartbeat that is driving you to why do you want to do this business has to be something slightly bigger, slightly outside of yourself. Because when you have that, then when times get a little rough, when times get scary, when those anxieties creep in, the thing that will motivate you to keep going, odds are it won't be the money, because there are going to be times when you're not making any. odds are it's not going to be because, oh, this is fun, because there are going to be days where you're like, this is not fun, I'm terrified, or this is not fun, I really need to sleep.
Yeah.
So having something, that engine, that core heart that keeps you going, that is kind of your guiding light, I think is pretty huge to managing those anxieties. When I say outside of yourself, it's almost like it's not about you anymore.
Mhm.
What are you bringing to the table? What are you bringing to your community? Is it a place where people can gather and have a cool experience? Is it what are you offering to your world? And it can start small, and then as your business grows, maybe your community, your world gets bigger. But I think that is a big, I guess, tool that I've used and that Paul has used is in managing those, like, oh gosh, or is this like a terrible idea? It's like, no, because we're doing this. This isn't about X, Y, and Z. This is about, this is our bigger why.
Mhm.
I don't know. I think that's something that's been important to us anyway, and has been kind of helpful.
Gives you a guiding light. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Very
Yeah.
important.
Yeah.
I'm curious, like Matt was talking about, there's a lot of resources out there for small businesses. Did you guys ever take advantage of any resources, or did you have any experience using those that are out there?
Yes, probably the biggest one that was, I cannot begin to tell you how wonderful they are, as volunteers of legal services, short for VOLS. They're wonderful and help pair you up with a firm that can help you work through all of the legal issues of your business.
Mhm.
And as you truck along, you're going to have you're going to need some legal help. And
Oh yeah.
if you are a small business, especially, having the powerhouse and influence of really talented lawyers is an expense that you might not necessarily have calculated or have. You might not have that money to pay them. And these lawyers, volunteers of legal services, are incredibly talented lawyers. We were paired up with one of the leading firms in the country.
Oh
And
wow.
they worked with us for free. And so that was pretty huge. I can't even begin. That was a game changer for us. So, and that was probably the biggest resource that we used to help us out.
Oh my gosh. As you were telling the story, like I was like trying to imagine all the things you would need a lawyer for, like liability, insurance, like everything, especially in a food business. There's just so much.
Yeah. And if you have a brick and mortar, if you end up going that route, like we did, I mean, there's of course the issues with your lease. And with our brick and mortar, we built out the space. So there's just endless amounts of things that we needed help with. And that was huge. Yeah.
Yeah. Man, that's impressive. And wow, that's really great that you were able to. It's been eye-opening in talking to Matt and now talking to you, that there really seems to be a lot more resources out there for everyone likes small businesses, right? Like and it's so challenging. So it's great to hear that there are resources out there.
Yeah. And the thing that I also find encouraging is like your friends, even if they're not directly involved in the business that you are building, like they might not have that specific type of expertise or knowledge. Odds are you have friends who love you, who support you, and who have ideas and creativity and other talents that are indirectly incredible resources to you. And so I would say, talk to your friends, because for example, here's a perfect example. When we were building out our space, one of his best friends from middle school is an architect, and he married this wonderful gal who's also one of our best friends, who is also an architect. Turns out they were starting a architecture. They're with architecture firms, but they wanted to do a project together. And so we were chit-chatting with them about this and wondered, like, hey, would you help us design the interior of our bakery? And yeah, they were the architects of our space. And so it's amazing to me how generous and willing people are to help out when you ask, because I think at the end of the day, people, I think, want to be a part of things. So I'm really grateful to them, because that was a huge gift. And it's also really cool to look around and be like, oh my gosh, our friends designed this. The more you bring people in, kind of the more special it becomes to you, because you can see the work of your friends and your community, and everybody's fingerprints are all over the place. So again, it kind of gets bigger. It becomes out your idea. If you let it be bigger than you, it'll be a lot more gratifying.
Absolutely. I mean, and even if you don't have friends who are architects, or if you're asking for help, I'm sure there's someone that is artistic and can make something for the decorations, or is willing to sweep a floor of a place that you're about to build out. Like, there's innumerable ways that you can rely on your network to help make it more fun.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, 100%. Design T-shirts, or
that's a good idea.
Flyers. I mean, and I see this like with our work in comedy, like when people were doing solo shows or whatever through the comedy theater, you can get people to, if you ask, people will be willing, I'm sure, to help out in whatever way they can, whether it's passing out flyers or,
writing a positive review on Yelp or whatever. Yeah.
Exactly. And in turn, I think it's pretty amazing when you can do that for somebody else too,
Of course.
So that's something.
Well, now I think it's a good time to go to the second clip with Matt talking about choosing locations and the importance of being ready to make decisions. If you were going to start a business, what are some businesses that you found struggle a bit more than others? And maybe on the positive side, ones that seem to be a little bit more can't miss?
Yeah. So, there is this idea that everyone wants to run a restaurant. And because you see them and you go into them and you're like, wow, this place is busy. This place, I think this seems kind of fun, but
it just happened. Happens. I set up a table and now people are eating at it.
That's right.
Nothing else.
But restaurants, especially in a post-COVID world, are very tough. The default rate pre-COVID was about 60% for restaurants. And if you don't have a sustainable business model post-COVID, it's worse. So what you really want to focus, food and beverage is going to be always a tough sector, just because the first thing is you have to put a large capital investment in. You have to buy the equipment, you have to buy chairs, you have to buy the machinery. The second thing is that the cost of the goods being sold, you have to be really on top of spoilage, as well as the insurances and rent and things of that nature. So it's a lot of restaurants where the staff is making significantly more than the owner.
Oh, wow.
It's usually the norm for that industry. I would say if you're going to food and beverage, definitely make sure you do that upfront planning for sure. Make sure you get a trusted advisor, and then do kind of some market research. Talk to people who are in the industry, understand what you're getting into, and understand all of those facets. I think it'll put you in a better place for sure for success. Businesses that tend to do well are kind of those ones that we think is more freelancers, right? We now live in a gig industry, and a lot of people are entrepreneurs, but they may not know it. Gig to gig, that's, you are your own small business. And so that's when there's an industry that's very low overhead, right? Like if you're a accountant or a bookkeeper, these are industries that will always do very, very well, because the only expense you have is your time and your service. There's no cost of goods associated with it.
Yeah, just your student loans, really.
That's right. Yeah. Which, hey, I don't know. I just read an article about Navient. You never know, right? One can hope.
Right. I've also heard you talk about pet industries as something that you have found to be really successful, like a dog.
Yeah, pet industries are through the roof right now, and rightfully so. When you think about COVID and the level of adoptions happening, as well as work from home being the new norm, you see more people taking on pets. And another thing you see because of that is that they need to get the pet out of the house if they have an important meeting, or if they have people coming over, or whatever that may be. And so you're seeing a huge increase in that industry, especially around doggy daycares, and especially around anything associated with pet food and pet supplies. That is a sector that we are seeing significant growth post-COVID.
Yeah, I mean, I have a dog, and there's nothing better than spoiling the pup, or he stinks, right? You got to take him to the groomer.
That's right. You got to take him to the groomer.
Let them deal with it. You don't want to give a bath and get dirty, right? It's nice that let the experts handle it. So it's easy to see.
Absolutely.
So what about choosing a physical location? I'm sure there's obviously a lot that goes into that, but what would you say is most important?
So I think, before we even talk about physical location, I think you have to think about what my business is doing and what can we do in the cheapest, most possible way. A lot of people let's take a restaurant. A lot of people want that store upfront based business on the corner of Madison and Fifth, or whatever the restaurant may be.
Right in Main Street, yeah.
Right on Main Street, you see that, you want that pasta house right there. But you want to think about, is there things that I can do right now to test my product that doesn't come with that large overhead? Maybe I start at the street vendor level. There's a lot of great street vendors here in the New York City area where it's very cheap to go and test your market. See if this is something people want to desire. From there, it may be possible to just do catering service or takeout service in a shared kitchen. There's a lot of incubator spaces in New York City. And what you really want to do is you want to kind of test your product or your service before you jump into that pool and make that large capital investment into the storefront. When you do make that capital investment, let's say to buy a brewery, you already know every single dollar and dime where it's going. You know exactly how many beers you need to sell to cover rent. You know exactly how much you have to do, and it's all feasible. It's all mapped out and laid out there for you. You just have to go do it. This is getting the spot and then hoping.
Right. Well, it's got to be a big trade-off between like the location that you choose versus can you get away with not having the perfect location for a less rent.
Yeah, exactly. And so, I mean, there's all these trade-offs in your business. And one of the things of businesses is that you're never going to get to a point where you don't have to make a decision. You're going to be having to make decisions, and usually tough decisions as an entrepreneur. As your business grows, the saying, more money, more problems.
Yeah.
This is going to have all of these different issues that you didn't have before in terms of growth and sustainability. And these aren't bad things. They're just things that need to be solved. So you never really hit a point in entrepreneurship where you're sitting on the beach and the business is running itself, unless you structured it that way or sold it off or something of that nature.
Yeah. Oh, man. What about raising capital? Is that something that you're able to help with as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So capital is always the most easy and hardest part of a business because everyone wants to give you capital. It's the question.
Really?
Oh, yeah. I mean, so when it comes to business and small business lending, there's no federal protections or laws. And so because of that, you have a lot of online predatory lenders who they're not going to ask you for sales receipts. They're not going to ask you for this or that. And when a lot of them even say, we don't charge an interest rate. And that's true. But what they do charge is fees. And so let's say you go on there, you take out a $30,000 loan. They'll say, great, you now owe us $36,000 and you have 8 months to pay it back. And we're going to debit your account daily.
God.
Yeah. So there's good capital and bad capital. And you also want to ask the question why you're raising capital. What's the reason? What's this capital going to go towards? Is it going to sustain my business or is it going to grow my business? Both of those questions you have to think about. If it's to sustain, maybe there's an issue with a business that we can take a look at that can be solvable without capital. But if it's to grow, that's the right reason to borrow, and you want to make sure you're borrowing from correct sources.
So you can go through someone's budget and be like, let's say it's a sandwich shop it's like the source of your bread is this price. Can you beat that? Like, is that how you guys operate?
No, not so much. It's not so much in a competition area. It's more of how much of this do you need to sell to cover your bills?
Mm.
How much is this bread costing you upfront to produce
Mm-hmm.
with the labor and time? And then are you selling it? And what price point are you selling it to cover the cost of everything? So it's not so much a competitive. And in fact, a lot of times what we see in the marketplace is cooperation, even between industries. Like there's a lot of incubator spaces in New York City where a lot of businesses that traditionally in the 1980s marketplace would be, there's one and let's crush everyone else. But we're now seeing a much more collaborative market space where people recognize that there is a lot of benefit for that. And we see that in breweries,
Mm-hmm.
great market where a lot of breweries will be helping out other markets. And it's called this economic of video games. You know, in the 1980s when video games first came out, they all tried to undercut each other and then all of a sudden the industry collapsed versus they all set a kind of bar and standard and it's been much more collaborative throughout the area.
Makes sense. Yeah. Especially with using the example of breweries. If you're raising the idea that you're building this like collective reputation that this city or this area has a good brewery, quote unquote, scene.
Right.
And then you've got people coming from out of town to like be a part of it.
That's right. And, you know, I'm always about having more than one beer and more than one location. So it's always to have that, the benefit where they can all work together and solve those problems. And it's about education too. I think that's the most important part in collaboration is they communicate with one another and they say things like, hey, have you used this distributor? Do you like them? Or, hey, we're thinking about doing this. Have you tried this marketing? Or, you know, they're sharing those ideas and best practices where a lot of great ideas are made.
That's great. And that, I mean, I keep pointing it back to things that you can help people with. The answer is pretty much everything. Like you could help people make that connection.
Yeah. So if you come to the SBDC Center or the Small Business Solution Centers, what we do is it's almost, I always say it's like a generalist going to go see a doctor and a generalist. We sit down, we understand your business, we understand where you're very strong. Then we find out where you may not be strong. And if you're not strong, let's say in legal help, we get you free legal services to get you. So it is building and getting you in this ecosystem where people can help and contribute.
Amazing. Look who we got here. It's our friends at My Software Tutor. Can Excel be my friend? Many people have wondered this for years. The answer is yes, it can. Excel doesn't have to be like the friend that your mom makes you hang out with in elementary school. It's weird. It's always stuff with boogers, right? What's wrong? What's up? Why is that kid always eating boogers? Their house always had the best snacks too. And there he is. Boogers. Well, Excel doesn't have to be like that weird kid. Unless you were that weird kid. Were you? Be honest. You know. I'm not actually asking. I can't hear your response, but you know. And it's okay if you were. You know, just take it easy with the boogers. Just talking about boogers to get ad read. Don't worry. They didn't write that part. That was an improvisation. My Software Tutor offers 3 levels of real-time Zoom-based courses with a live instructor. They deliver practical, functional business skills in a friendly and supportive environment. It can be daunting, right? You need that supporting environment to learn Excel. There's no stupid questions. It could be really difficult. And as we know, when we talk about it on this podcast all the time, it could be really daunting to learn something new and put yourself out there. So think of this as like a kindergarten for learning something new and helping your job prospects. Or be better at the job you already have. Get that raise, get that whatever, take pictures of it for Instagram. Yeah, that'll be cool. Keeping it as vague as possible so that you can input your own. Just making a mad lib of your own desires. These courses will increase your marketability, whether you're an employee, job seeker, consultant, or contractor. Register at mysoftwaretutor.com and use the promo code POD20 to save 20% off all registrations. Thank you so much to My Software Tutor. Yeah, guys, take advantage of that 20% off and confidently list Excel on your resume. So it seems like Bushwick was a part of the business's story. What was it like choosing a location for your brick and mortar?
Well, that is a great question, because I mentioned this a little earlier, but for a long time, Paul and I were extremely against having a brick and mortar. We wanted to be these rogue bunslingers, going from like pop up to pop up and brewery to brewery. And that was kind of our business model. And it was great because we didn't have the overhead of our own space. We would just wheel in, sell our product, and get out of there. But what we found is, as we started gaining, some press and some traction and a little following with our pastry, people started asking like, okay, where can I find you tomorrow? And it was like, okay, well, tomorrow we're in this borough. The day after that, we're at this borough. We're at this bar, this bar. So it was kind of asking a lot for our customers to keep a calendar
Yeah.
of our whole rotating list of food festivals and pop-ups and things. So we kind of got to this point where we met, Paul and I, whenever we make big decisions, we go to this one spot near our apartment by the water and we talk it out, and then we make the decision. And we kind of reached a point in our business where I was still working full time. Paul was still working full time. We were also doing all these food festivals and pop-ups. So it was, and doing our performances. So it was a lot. And we kind of reached a point where we were like, we either have to go all in on our business, and that probably means reassessing our current model of food festival, pop-up, and having our own place, or we need to wave the white flag and move on. And we weren't ready to do that because we love our business. We love our company. And so at that moment, we had, I should mention, kind of like toyed around with the idea. We had looked at a couple spaces just very casually. They were all over our budget. And we kind of thought, we're like, how are we going to do this? But right when we made that decision, and that was a decision for me, I was like, okay, I guess I'm going to leave my full-time job to pursue this. And right when we did that, we shook hands by the water, and I kid you not, within an hour, maybe two at most, we got a phone call. This does not happen. This does not happen, especially in New York. We got a random call that was a man who said, hey, listen, I'm working on filling a building in Bushwick. I'm leasing these spaces out. It's this cool factory that's been, kind of remodeled. And we think that your business would be a perfect fit. Do you have any interest in?
Wow.
I mean, and
that does not happen. No.
That does not happen. Like it wouldn't even happen, let alone the timing was crazy, but like people don't just call and say like, hey, I have a space for you,
Mm-hmm.
In our budget, because at the time, everyone thought the L train was going to close.
Yeah.
But they didn't.
Yeah, right.
It was great. And so it was within our budget. The rent wasn't too crazy. And we were able to, it was a blank slate. So we were still able to kind of implement some of our like pop-up food festival feel in the aesthetic. And yeah, Bushwick was kind of perfect because, as I mentioned before, one of our most, I guess, longstanding pop-ups had been at KCBC, this wonderful brewery around the corner from our now brick and mortar. And so we were already familiar with the neighborhood, and people already kind of knew us there. And so it was, talk about meant to be. I couldn't really wrap my head around the timing of it. And so that was kind of our story of how we found our place and why we kind of knew it was the right spot for us. But yeah, it was wild. And so
man, the stars have just been aligned for if it seems like it's been clear the next step forward.
Well,
yeah.
yes and no. I will say someone, yeah. I mean, hindsight's always 20/20, right?
Yeah.
Like when we were first getting going, I mean, there have been plenty of nights where you're staring at the ceiling and you're thinking, oh, I've made a terrible mistake. I don't know what to do next. I don't know how this never-ending to-do list, which doesn't change, by the way. Like the never-ending to-do list is always going to be there.
Mm-hmm.
But there have been plenty of nights like that. But again, it kind of goes back to this, why are you doing it? And yeah, we love making our food. We love sharing our food. We've been really blessed with a wonderful team now. We have a whole mess of employees, a whole crew who are just incredibly talented, wonderful people. And yeah, we're really lucky with that. And we're really lucky that our community that we get to, have this bakery in is super supportive of us.
So the to-do list is constantly there, right? There's constantly something to focus on, something else to fix or whatever. So there's a lot of decisions that need to be made. How do you approach you probably have to make difficult decisions fairly often. It seems like you guys may have a routine of going down to the water, but has that gotten easier over time, or does it get harder because it just never leaves your shoulders?
I guess I'm kind of lucky because my husband and we own this business together, and I genuinely really like working with him. So I am kind of lucky and spoiled in that way, because I think our communication has gotten progressively stronger in this. And I do think, decision. I'm not going to say they get easier, because some decisions are just harder than others.
Yeah.
But are we more effective in making them and coming up with maybe the right decision? I think so. And that just, for us, what's worked for us is just kind of setting times to, okay, we're going to work on this specific problem and or challenge, and we're going to come up with a couple solutions, and then see which one works, because sometimes you'll try one thing and it's nice to have another option. And the same is true kind of with, it's an endless to-do list, but things are going to break and things are going to need to be fixed. So I think it's important to understand that not everything is a crisis. It's just part of having your own business. And so you're not weird or alone in feeling like, wow, is this list never ending? Why is everything breaking? Sometimes it'll feel like the stars are aligned and everything is working and it's smooth sailing. And then other times you will feel like you're in the middle of a storm in the sea. And that's just how it goes. But hopefully, to keep this sea analogy going, baby, hopefully you've built a strong boat and you're going to make it through that storm. And I think that kind of boat is built on a couple things. One, I feel like I'm sounding like a crazy person, but knowing why you're doing this in the first place, making sure that it's rooted in something outside of yourself, bringing on people who you trust, who are talented, who you like being around. We're lucky. I love our staff. They're really wonderful people, and they're endlessly talented. So we are lucky, and we really search hard for the people we bring on. So I think, yes, knowing your why, bringing on really solid people, and with that, talking to people who you trust when you're seeking advice about next steps, and making sure that you're connecting with your community, whether it's through social media, like listening to the needs of your customers, talking to people as they come in, making sure that people feel welcome, good old Southern hospitality.
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah.
And this is a place where people can feel at home, and also making sure your product's good. That's kind of, what are you selling? Make sure that is this something that I'm proud to have my name behind? Is this good? And how to prove it? But so those are the things I think are going to make your boat pretty strong. So when that to-do list gets overwhelming, you're going to make it through to the other side. It's just one wave at a time.
I'm so impressed at how you were able to maintain the boat and an ocean metaphor.
I am also impressed by that sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah, you're full of metaphors. It's what makes you so charming. You take risks too with what it may be.
Thank you. I think that's very kind of you to say it. Maybe that's the improviser in me.
Yes.
Always trying to make a metaphor.
Well, I think it's a great time to go to the third and final clip here with Matt, talking a little bit more about business plans and the necessity of being flexible. Hey, do you wish you were a thoughtful card person but don't have the time or energy? right? You want to be that person that has a hobby, full-time job, crushing it in the job, has kids, has a family, has a dog, whatever it is, and still, right, sends that message, sends a card, handwritten, something that makes you laugh and cry. How does that person do it? I don't know. But maybe it's Cardist. Maybe he's born with it. Maybe it's Cardist. The Cardist Studio is your personal assistant. That's how you get it done, right? Somebody helps you out with it. That's okay. The end result is still the end result. You're thinking, oh, should I send them a card? That's it. From there, you just jump onto thecardiststudio.com and tell them exactly what just popped in your head. Your thoughtfulness. The Cardist Studio will get your personalized message handwritten into the card and in the mail for you. You're busy. You're doing a lot of other things. You know, it's not like they're going to tell on you. And the person's going to be thrilled. I've gotten one of these and it filled my heart with joy. Even better, it's fast, it's custom, and it's a total life changer. Hey, you're a thoughtful card person now. Look at you. New achievement unlocked. Just go to thecardiststudio.com and you can even use the promo code AnxietyPod for 10% off all orders. Well, you mentioned that there were some odd businesses that you've run or helped with. Anything come to mind?
Yeah, I always love the one about the sunglasses. He's always one of my favorites. He just took an old truck, he cut out the back, and he made it a mobile sunglasses hut where he drives up and down the beach. And I think that's genius, because how many times do you leave your sunglasses at home and you're just looking for something, and here's a truck running down the road?
It's a great idea. Yeah.
Yeah. And we're seeing what I love about entrepreneurs in my job is to see the level of creativity people are coming up with, especially in a post-COVID world. The people who are able to adapt and taking their models online, virtual wine tastings or whatever that may be, virtual escape rooms now, taking those models and shifting them, I think it really gives them an industry edge. And it's great to see the innovation of entrepreneurs during this time.
Yeah, it's crazy how much the world changed, and who knows what'll happen if and when we go back to something that resembles what it once was. But yeah, the creativity is very exciting. Well, is there anything you think I'm missing related to what an entrepreneur should know, either at the starting point or while they're running their business?
An entrepreneur who is starting their business, I would say make sure you do that upfront planning. Don't quit your day job tomorrow. Make sure you slowly go into the process. Make sure you research. Make sure you do that homework of getting the pen to the paper to build your business plan and strategic development. It's not the most sexiest of work, but it will save you so much time and energy later on to mitigate some of those anxieties. For entrepreneurs who are already in the system, I would say, again, revisit it. What does my plan look like now that I'm in it? Do we have to pivot or do we have to change? And so taking some hours out of your day from running the business, it doesn't have to be much, maybe 1 hour a week, and sitting down and really looking at your business. Where do you want that to go?
Mm-hmm. And also, what I'm gathering is that entrepreneurs need to be a little bit flexible and listen to what their numbers are telling them.
Yeah. And, be realistic. I know we all want to be the biggest thing possible, but understand in the industry, right, where you stand within the industry and what feasible growth looks like there.
Oh, that's great. You mentioned it a few times, but can you mention again the resources that are available both nationwide and with your company?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, the best one nationwide would be the Small Business Development Centers, or SBDC for short. You put that in Google, they'll find the closest one for you. All free resources. They're run by the SBA. They're run by the United States government. Here in the New York City area, we have the Small Business Solutions Centers. There's one in every borough that you can visit. They all will meet with you online as well, where you can receive services. And those are just a few. In the New York City area alone, there's over 20 free small business resources available for you. However, if you get in there, like the breweries, we all work together. So if you need any help, we'll get you in this ecosystem and we'll get you there. And there's a lot of these ecosystems throughout the entire US. You don't even have to be in a major city. For instance, Utica, New York has a lot of resources. So there's a lot out there.
And if Utica has it, everywhere else will have it.
That's right. That's right.
Little hometown joke at your expense.
That's right. Yeah, you got to represent the Utica.
Well, thank you so much for this information, and hopefully it will help people jump in as an entrepreneur, but to do it with a bit of a clear head and know that there is support out there.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So when it comes to raising capital, is there anything that you learned that you think people who are just setting out in their boat would want to know?
Sail.
Yeah, there you go.
I think the first thing is starting small. You might initially think of your company as a huge global corporation. You might have big dreams for it, or something maybe not quite that big, but maybe you're thinking big. That's great. Dream big, take those risks. But it's also, I think, pretty important to start small. With kolaches, we had 2 flavors and that was it. We weren't doing breakfast tacos. We weren't doing our Frito pies. We had 2 things on our menu. And like I mentioned, started with 20 bucks. So literally, I think that the smaller you can start, the better. And then slowly, this is just what worked for us, slowly growing it. So starting maybe with one smaller food festival that maybe doesn't have a huge entry fee, because a lot of these food festivals, they'll have pretty costly entrance fees if food is your business. But maybe maybe it's a craft fair, maybe it's I'm not sure, however you want to, maybe it's an Etsy site. Mm-hmm. But start small with a few products, but doing them really, really well. And then from there, you might have to put a little bit of your own skin in the game. I mean, that's just, for us, that was definitely part of it. What are our essential tools? Not getting super fancy, can we get anything used? Those kinds of things. Starting small and then gradually growing, saving as much as you can. So with us, with our food festivals and our pop-ups, we were able to save quite a lot just doing that because we didn't have any overhead. And that was pretty important to us. Eventually, when we started to have to rent a commercial kitchen, that was right around the time we were like, okay, we need to transition to either not doing this anymore or having our own space. So I think it's important to know how much going in, how much am I willing to put into this dream financially? Mm-hmm. When is it too much? And then, okay, if this is how much I'm willing to go in, forget the perfectionism. You might have ideas of all the perfect equipment that you want, but what's out there that you can use for free? Does anybody have the equipment, the tools that you can borrow? Trying to do as much as you can at the beginning at low to zero costs is pretty huge. And then from there, you are going to be able to show exponential growth. So when you approach people like, hey, would you be willing to contribute a little bit to this next step? People might be willing to be like, wow, you're growing really, really fast because you started with such a small acorn. And then that will grow into a tree.
Yeah, there you go.
There's my metaphor. There's my new metaphor. Yeah. And then, of course, there's other options too. I mean, when we were opening up our brick and mortar, everything is more expensive than you anticipate it to be. Or at least it was for us. Building something in New York City, there's just a lot of red tape. Things are just really expensive. And there's just a lot of expenses that we didn't even anticipate at the beginning. And so one thing that we did to kind of like get us over that hurdle was we did do a Kickstarter. It wasn't a huge Kickstarter. It was just enough to help us kind of get the doors open and get moving, to get some equipment, that kind of thing. And I'm really grateful for that because not only is it a cool platform, like I kind of surf through Kickstarter every now and then just to see kind of what's out there, what's cooking. But it was really meaningful to us to see all the people who were willing to contribute to it. So our business is open and successful and doing well hugely because of the people who were like, yeah, keep going. We believe in you. Go. You got this. So I don't know if I feel like I'm rambling, but
not at all. Yeah, it's incredible the amount of people that can help. I mean, no matter what the goal or the business is, right? Like it's great. It's a great reminder to get by with a little help from your friends.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. And it'll be more fun. It'll be so
Yeah.
much more. Yeah.
Yeah. What do you think is the most important thing that a potential new business owner needs to know or needs to have their mindset reshaped?
Well, I think it kind of goes, I think it's three things.
Okay. That's okay. You get three.
Here are the three things. And to kind of recap it, it's don't make decisions out of fear. Be brave, do your research, but take risks.
Mm-hmm.
So if you spend all your time thinking like, oh, this would be really cool, or maybe you're asking a few people like, hey, should I do this? Just do it. Don't, yeah. And don't make decisions because you're nervous. Oh, this will never work. I don't know, blah, blah, blah. Do it. Don't make decisions or once you have the business open, keep that mindset. Don't make decisions out of fear. Like, oh, maybe we shouldn't do XYZ because that could be really, I don't know, maybe that won't work with our business or whatever. If you're interested in it and you see some possibilities on how it could improve, take it. Do your research, but make some risks. Don't make decisions out of fear. So that's number one. Number two is, I think, in my opinion, maybe one of the biggest things. And that's if you're doing it to make money or just because it's fun, that's not gonna be enough. You have to have a core passion that drives you to operate your business. And I believe that core passion should be something bigger, something slightly outside of yourself. What are you bringing to the world? If it's delicious food at a reasonable price point, so you can offer a positive experience for people in your community, a place where they can connect over something wonderful and delicious. Look, for us, we kind of were thinking, we're like, listen, we really like creating positive experiences for people. That's a big thing for Paul and me, but everybody has different types of experiences they enjoy. Not everybody goes to the movies. Not everybody is an athlete or likes to go to sporting events, but everybody has to eat.
Yeah.
Everybody eat. And that was something that important to us, is that we could offer something affordable and wonderful to our community and create a positive experience that people are looking for every day, 3 times a day, maybe more.
Yeah, right. I know I have ever since the pandemic.
You and me both. Yeah. So knowing your, what did I say? The core passion that drives you to operate your business. That's probably number 2. And yeah, number 3, I think kind of goes with what we've been talking about, is knowing that things aren't going to be perfect all the time, but there's nothing quite like working for yourself. The ups and the downs with that. And bonus points if you can do it with someone you love, whether it's business partner, who's a friend, or your significant other, in my case, my husband. But there's nothing quite like it. And so with that joy, it's inevitable with any business. There's going to be challenges, but if you go into it knowing there are going to be days that aren't perfect, whether it's the challenges or maybe you're just really tired because you have to really I think that's really helpful because you take a little bit of the pressure off yourself, and with that, I think you'll find the kind of the funny outcome of that is I think you end up finding so much more joy and so much more creativity and so much more fun. And the closer you get to being great, the closer you get to being perfect when you release that pressure. And also with that, you end up attracting people who are fun and and creative. So it all kind of works together because like I said, I'm really grateful for the team who we have working with us now. I'm also really grateful for our customers because our customers are really awesome. We have a customer base who is continuing to grow, and they're just wonderful people who like eating really good food.
Hey, right?
So what's not to love? Yeah, those are the 3 kind of big things that I would say if you're starting something, whether it's in food, get in there, be brave, make some choices that seem scary, but if you know what that core passion is, you're going to be successful. It might take longer than you think, but you're going to do it, So I'd say that's it.
I love that. That's all amazing. Very good advice that people can put into practice immediately. So yeah, thank you for sharing all of that.
Yeah. Well, this was so much fun. Thank you for letting me share so much about the biz. It's nice to get to talk about it and, how it all kind of came to be. So,
Of course. Well, where can people find you and the business on social media?
oh, awesome. Well, we are Kings Kolache. On social media, we are at Kings Kolache. Our symbol's like a little flag in a window. Lots of good food on our Instagram page. And me, I'm Sarah Ashey. Ashey is like Ashley without the L.
Mm-hmm.
So on social media, I'm at Sarah with an H, at Sarah Ashey. And that's me.
Awesome. Well, so wonderful catching up with you. And I'm so happy to see that you and Paul are out there crushing it. And it's such a brave decision. And I'm glad the pandemic didn't hold you guys down.
Oh, Patrick, you are the freaking best. Well, the pandemic was interesting, wasn't it? Because it allowed us, when we were open, because we opened March 27th of 2020. And I know that we're wrapping up, but I should say this. When I say I'm grateful for our customers, I am endlessly grateful for our customers because they really kept us open. That's a special neighborhood where they really come out to support small business. And it was just the two of us. It was just Paul and me, and we were serving everyone through this no contact window. It was a sliding door, but we were able to keep our doors open, because we were able to do the distance in 6 feet. And it allowed us to connect with our customers and our community in kind of a more intimate way, because small talk kind of went out the window. It's like we're all in this canoe.
Yeah.
We're all in this boat together, and we were able to instantly bond. And so pandemic, while it was not how we pictured opening, that's not the grand opening we had hoped. Again, we're not looking for perfection here. We just had to get the doors open and pray that people turned out, and boy did they. So
great.
Yeah. So anyway, that's that.
Well, I hope you guys continued success, and yeah, let's keep in touch.
Oh yes, Patrick, this was wonderful. It's so great to see you and talk with you, and yeah, it's great to hang for a little.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much to be anxious about starting a new business, but it is eye-opening. Maybe I should complete one thought before I rush into the next. But like even things like your retirement savings or how to invest and health insurance, and I guess that's one nice thing of being of having a salary and is that those things are kind of taken care of, I guess. But yeah, back to the other thought that I rushed in there. There's a lot out there. There really is. I mean, just hearing from Sarah and Matt, there's a lot more out there than I would have thought, and that's so encouraging. Because we got enough box stores, Do we need another Lowe's or Home Depot that I would go to every weekend? Nah, we got enough. We need some fun small businesses. Right? No one brags about having the biggest Best Buy in the country. They talk about having a great restaurant or coffee shop or, I don't know, what other people get? A record store. Sure, there. Found a third thing. So yeah, thank you so much to Matt, and thank you to Sarah. Before I get to the weird thing that caused me anxiety this week, I want to remind you of my other podcast called Death Space Filling the Void. You can get it wherever you get your podcasts or deathspacepodcast.com. Tongue-tied. If you're liking the show and you want to support it and support me, there's the Buy Me a Coffee link in the description. That's just a way to make donations. Always appreciated. Thank you to people who have already donated. There's also the Instacart link where you can sign up to get groceries delivered. And if you sign up through the link in the description, that tells Instacart that this show sent you, which also helps support the show. Also check out my software tutor, who's got a promo code POD20 for 20% off, and the Carta Studio with the promo code AnxietyPod for 10% off. Okay, the weird thing that caused me anxiety is on Sunday, I actually had like an hour to kill, and that caused me anxiety. I started getting home delivery of Charleston's newspaper, the Post and Courier. Courier? And so I had the thought that, I'll just like sit outside and read the paper like I'm 90. I don't know. I really do enjoy it, though. I really enjoy getting the paper. But then I just fell into a trap of worrying about what I wasn't doing, what else I could be doing. I don't know. It's summer. Why aren't I going to the pool or something? So I just sat there and worried for and then the time filled in, and then there were more things to do. Don't be like me. Don't just worry to waste time. Read that paper. Be 90 years old. Well, thank you so much for listening. Hope you're keeping the anxiety levels low, having a good summer, and I'll talk to you on Thursday.